Hello there, this is Dracoing, and today we're doing the Modern Merfolk video sideboard guide. Really excited about this one, and I've been wanting to do this since I got my 1,000 subscribers for YouTube. This was the prize for all of you nice folk getting in there. So today we're gonna go through what should we actually do for each matchup. We're gonna talk general philosophy, and we're gonna break down the matchups and which cards to swap in and out here. So I actually picked out a deck which we're going to use as the baseline for adjusting. But of course, there's a lot of different lists out there. So I also discussed a bit of general cards and other cards you could be choosing. So welcome, really nice to have you here. We're gonna jump into it right in a second, but really nice to see people liking my content, and thanks you guys for following. We are over 1,000 subscribers for YouTube now. Also, if you want to check out Card Hoarder, this is my sponsor. I used to get all these nice cards I can use from the sideboard. So if you need cards for your own sideboard, check them out. They're really great sponsor. But let's jump into the show here. So, the general philosophy for Merfolk in Modern is interesting. It's really important to understand the strengths and the weaknesses of all your cards. And this is because Modern Merfolk is a deck that typically is really flexible. It can play aggressive, it can play defensively. It has a lot of tools and cards it can use against certain matchups. That's why Blue is amazing. Blue has a lot of different tools. Not that much removal. That's why we're glad we have at least this member. But it has a lot of cool things it can be doing. And it has good answers against different things. So what I always try to do is that I try to understand all the cards I have in the potential pool. I try to group them into categories. And I'll go through some of the categories. So when a new card arises that you suddenly play with, or some cards you play with, you can maybe also put it into that category. And that gives you a headway start to evaluating, should I be putting this card in this matchup, or should I be taking it out. And we're also going to talk about each specific matchup. Today we're going to talk about Murktide matchup, we're going to talk about Hammer, we're going to talk about Rhinos, Omnath, Burn, Scam, Rakdos, and Creativity. And for episode 2 we have a lot of other cool matchups, and we're going to run through a lot more matchups there. So you should start by evaluating the matchup. Is this a slow matchup or is it a fast matchup? So do you need to be fast or slow? What about your opponent? What is he doing? Is he doing something broken? Some decks in Modern are really broken. Or are they more playing a fair game? If they're playing the fair game, maybe you can overwhelm them by pressing the board. But if they're doing something broken, you need some answers to that broken stuff. So that's really important to understand each time you play. What about us? Do we play aggressive or do we play controlling? Merfolk can be really controlling sometimes, and sometimes that's correct. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need to be the aggressor and proactive. And then of course important to understand what's my opponent win con and how do I actually beat it, and which kind of tools do I have. And that's going to be really relevant when we look into specific matchup moving forward. The groups, the groups of cards here. The first group is the one I like to call card advantage. So Blue has always historically been great at gaining card advantage, and Merfolk is no stranger for that as well. But it's really important to understand which cards are card advantage cards that also suffer a bit from speed problems, because these cards typically, if people do something really fast or broken, like Hammertime for example, these cards are too slow. So understandable, it can be hard to take good cards out, but sometimes it's right to do. And the cards in this group is, for example, Spreading Seas, which has an effect and you draw a land. But it is an even better example. It's a 2/1 for 2 mana, but it grants you a card. So you get a card on board and you get a card in hand for 1 mana, so it's 2 for 1. And Svelun is of course the ultimate card engine for us, but sometimes she is too slow. Sometimes she's too slow. So every time you see a new card, this is a good category, because there are some general rules when you're playing against slower, more control-ish decks. Card advantage is great. If you play in attrition matchups, card advantage is great again, because you'll trade 1-for-1 blows and you will come up on top in the end. But sometimes they're too slow. Another thing is that we have actually some tools against creatures. Dismember is a great thing. I mentioned that before. It's a spot removal spell that's really slotting in nicely for Merfolk because we don't have that much else. But we have other things against creatures. We have Harbinger of the Tides, a way to bounce creatures back, and really, really nice right now in the meta. And we also have Subtlety. I know Subtlety is a card that's really important for specifically and especially the Invoke Elementals, but in general, there are a lot of creature-based combo decks as well, where the Subtlety is amazing and a great card for us to be able to use against creature-based decks. And of course, we also have anti-spells and also anti-combo. There are some combo decks out there, so we really want to be able to take them out. And some examples here, but again, it doesn't have to be the Hexcatcher or the Force Negation we put in this category. There's a lot of different counterspells for blue. If you're playing Flusterstorm or if you spell Test of Talents or something like that, these cards is also great choices. If you don't maybe have the Chalice of the Void, you can play Test of Talents as a discount option, a budget option. But in general, these cards are amazing against spell-based decks or combo-based decks. And of course, we also have interaction against lands, which is kind of interesting because not only is Spreading Seas and Tidetaper a way of granting Island Walk, that's actually, kind of important, but not the most important. The Island Walk Lords are amazing because everybody's playing these 4 or 5 color mana bases, so there are islands out there, so it's practically just unblockable. So yeah, it's really relevant sometimes, but more so killing Ursa Sagas and taking out greedy mana bases and maybe a troublesome Inkmoth Nexus or something. These are where these cards really shine. Okay, let's go into specific matchups. And for the list we are playing, we have this list from Tyrifolix 92, who managed to do 5-0. So I took this list because I think it's a pretty nice list and relatively stock, and you can find it in the description below. The reason why I want to have a list is that then we have something we can actually go in and look upon when we are adjusting cards. In general, the stock list right now are running Tidetaper, Ethervial, 12 Lords, 4 Tricksters, 4 Svaeloons, and about 20 lands. This is 19, so it's a bit greedy, but around 20 lands. So that's the core of each Merfolk deck. Then Tyrifolix has a couple of Mistcallers. This could be Resident Dockhand, or it could be not a 1-drop, but I think Resident Dockhand is a good alternative. He has 2 Silver Adepts, people are running 2 or 4, and he has 2 Spreading Seas main deck. And then Force Negation main deck 4. The alternative is for Subtlety main deck. I think you should play either for Subtlety main deck or for Force Negation main deck. So having it here is absolutely fine because I think in general you want to have all 8 of these cards in your 75 at all points because both cards are amazing. In the sideboard, Tyrifolix is running Chalice of the Void. This is absolutely a great card. He's running Hercules Recall, also really important since Hammertime is so good right now. Relic Opportunities, not many people are running this, so it's there, and it could also be hers, or maybe even nothing. Nothing against a graveyard-based deck. It could be something completely different. A couple of Harbingers and a couple of Kiras. So this is just a list we're gonna use as the base point for discussion. So I'm gonna show you which card we take out and which card we put in. Let's look at Murktide. Murktide is an interesting deck. They have a lot of spells, but that doesn't make Force Negation great. In general, take this card out and don't put it in against Murktide because we want to be able to counter something a bit better than a Lightning Bolt with Force Negation. Of course, you could be. I think it's okay to counter the card advantage card. They have the. I can't remember what it's called, but the red and blue one that grants 2 cards for them. But in general, it's still not worth it. So get Force Negation out, and also get Spreading Seas out because we can't really tinker with the lanes that much. So that would be my recommendation. And this gives us 6 slots we can put in, and we have 3 Chalice of the Void in the sideboard. We have 2 Harbingers, and then we can put in 1 Relic. I would also like 1 more Relic. So we can look into, should we be cutting a Lord, and maybe the Hexcatcher could be a decent cut here. So I wanted to note something as well, because why are we not cutting maybe the miscallers? And that's why I want to talk about 1-drops in general, because against a Ragavan based deck like this, I think it's not the worst to keep in something like a Mistcaller or a Resident Dockhand, because the 1-drops allows you to trade with the Ragavan early, and that's just important. Sometimes you lose the matchup just because a Ragavan runs away with the game. So looking at sideboarding, we want to take out Force Negation, we want to take out Spreading Seas, we want to get in, let me see here, we're going to get in the 3 Chalices, we're going to get in the 2 Harbingers, we're going to get in maybe a couple of Relics, and then we can cut 1 Hex Catcher. So maybe these 8 cards for these cards here. That would be a decent 7 for 7 swap. You could also consider Kira, also really fine card in this matchup. The problem is that Kira sometimes gets to battle up against a giant Murktide, and that's not something you do. Another thing I want to mention is Tide Chipper is great in this matchup, because you can put the pressure on a Murktide player, and a 2/2 for 1 is actually decent, and it also just trades with the Ragavan early. So that's Murktide. I actually really like the matchup. I don't think we are in that much trouble in this matchup. It's a good deck, but I have a positive win rate against it. Let's jump to Hammertime, which is kind of more difficult. I've been playing a lot of Hammertime matchup, and it's always been really hard. But I still think we get a little bit of love now, a bit better options for this matchup. What I'm doing is that I'm taking out the Civic Adept and all Force Ray Loons, and that's exactly because what we talked about before, tempo. So we're gonna take out card advantage cards, because Hammertime will win so early. We need to be able to interact with it much earlier than that. And they could win on turn 3, so Swealoon will not really be relevant at that time. So we need to be a bit more on the defensive side here. Trefolix's list is actually really great against Hammertime. It has a lot of main deck options against Hammertime, but we do get something from the sideboard as well. We get 2 Hurkyl's Recall, and of course get it in the original Antiquities card here. That's I think it costs nothing, plus or minus 1, but 2 Hurkyl's Recalls. Totally amazing. A 2-mana card that just sweeps all artifacts owned by him, not us, up to the hand. And Harbingers is also amazing, primarily because he can do it at instant speed. And when he then equips a hammer on a flying Ornithopter unblockable, we can then do that there. Okay, so that's what I'll be doing here. And this is you can see this is a 2 for 2. So maybe we just got 2 Loons and 2 Adepts, and we just put in 2 Hurkyl's Recall and 2 Harbingers. So it would be looking like we cut in 2 Loons and 2 Adepts, and we put in 2 Harbingers and 2 Hurkyl's Recall, exactly like this. But yeah. That's an example of how I would approach it. You can also say that what about the Mistcallers? Are they amazing? No, not great. But for this specific sideboard, it's still okay to have something you can just put on the pressure and aggressive. We have the Dismember main deck, and those are great. And we're not cutting the Spreading Seas, even though it's a card advantage card, because they have the Ursa Saga. Okay, move back one. I also wanted to mention Chalice of the Void. Why we're not playing that card? I've been testing out Chalice of the Void against Hammertime. The problem is that if you put it out on 1, and that's exactly what you should be doing with Chalice of the Void, never put it out for 2, because then you're paying 4 mana and his game plan is underway. So you put it out either for 0 or for 1, and the best option is to put it out for 1 to hit the Hammertime. The problem is that if the opponent is running Stoneforge Mystic, which they always are, then they just have an alternative win condition, and you put out this card and they put on the Stoneforge Mystic, and they can just win with that card instead, because that'll just be able to put it in. So I don't think it's worth it, but you could consider testing out yourself Chalice of the Void. I want to have an honorable mention, because I've been loving Ratchet Bomb in general. It's not in Trefolix's list, but if you do have a Ratchet Bomb, this is one of the matchups where it's really great. You tick it up, you put it in, and you can actually kill off all the Hopsters right away. You can also tick it up to 1 and kill off the hammer itself. So great carding in this matchup. Again, control-ish, so really nice to see. It's still a difficult matchup, but I like it more now. The Hexcatcher is also decent against something they've been doing. Sometimes you can counter something out of the blue. Okay, so for Rhinos, what's going on? What's going on here? So Rhinos is actually an interesting deck because, compared to other of the Cascade decks that want to cascade into these kinds of spells here, the suspend spells. Rhinos is a bit more of a mid-rangey deck. It has a lot of colors, but I think it's not worth trying to be using Spreading Seas against Rhinos. And the Silver Dagger is simply just too small. It's not really relevant having that. So you can easily cut Silver Dagger here. It's not at its best in this matchup. You want to be a bit faster against the Rhinos. Look at it as a bit more of a control deck. And even though the Dismember can kill off a Rhino, that's not really good. Also, they're pressuring your life total. They can put out 10 points of damage if they play the agent. Then they have 10 points of damage, and you use a Dismember taking 4 points of damage and leaving them the 6 power on the board. That's not really that good of an exchange. And the Mistcaller is just also too little here. We want to be putting in the Subtleties because these guys are playing. They're playing Invoke Elementals. They're playing Fury. So Subtleties is a absolutely good card in this matchup. Harbingers is decent. You can get that in and use it to bounce one of the Rhinos, and that's a fine exchange because sometimes one Rhino is just not dangerous enough for them. Then we can overrun it on the other end. And then of course Shelter of the Void, which is a great card against these guys. We need something to do against the broken stuff they're doing when they're playing a 3 mana to do 10 points of damage or two big 4/4s at instant speed. Whatever they're doing, we need something to stop it. And Shelter of the Void on 0 just counters the Cascade right out the bat. So that's an amazing card. So we can see here we're cutting 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards. And we're putting in the 4 Subtleties and the 3 Chalices and the 2 Harbingers. So this is 9 for 9. I don't like 1-drops in this matchup. So we take out the Mistcallers. But the Tidetippers is still decent. Not because you can mana deny them, because it is actually really hard to mana deny the Rhino deck. They have a great mana base. So I've been trying to see, should I keep in Spreading Seas, should try to mana deny them. It's not the right way to go. They have all these triomes and fetch lands, so we can't really mana deny them. They'll always be able to find the mana. But Tidetipper is still fine, because Tidetipper is something you can use as a pressure point. You put it down as a 2/2 for 1. And then they might resolve a Rhino, but maybe you can just kill them faster than they'll be able to kill you. They have subpar removal because they are limited by their own deck, that they can't really use all the best removals in the format. So Hexcatcher has swung this matchup in Merfolk's favor, I would say. So just want to mention that great card, and also honorable mention again, Ratchet Bump, killing off 2 Rhinos, not too shabby. But this would be my strategy. To swap these cards around like this. And then we want to talk about 4-color Omnath or 5-color Omnath. And there are kind of 2 different versions of this list Omnath decks. But in general, what Omnath are doing are being really strong at having all the best cards. They have Ren and 6, and they have Elementals, Fury, and of course Omnath itself. So just bang full of extremely strong cards. We want to cut the Adepts because Ren and 6 can just kill it off right away, and that's one of the worst interaction. And they often play 4 Ren and 6. So putting down a Silver Galadon on 2, and him just resolving Ren 6 and shooting it is just leaving us so far behind. So that's just not an optimal play. Spreading Seas, again, it's hard to mana deny them, so I don't think that's the right strategy. Get that out there, we have better options. And then Mistcallers are doing nothing in this matchup, again just getting killed off by Ren 6. Salty on the other hand is amazing. Subtlety is a great card against Omnath. It's a great card against the Fury Elementals. So get that in there. Even though Subtlety fits in the group of, because we keep in the Dismember against Omnath, so notice that, because we like our anti-creatures here, but we don't like Harbinger specifically for this matchup, because bouncing an Omnath, yeah, that's not what we want to do. Omnath is not there for attacking, it's there for gaining value. It's just sitting there getting value on the other side of the table, so Harbinger can't interact with it before it attacks, that's the problem. And you would never want to bounce an elemental. So don't do that. But Kira for the sideboard, get that in there. Really nice option here. So we get 6 cards from the sideboard, we get 6 cards from the main deck. So that's a fair swap. Difficult matchup, I would say. Difficult matchup. Okay, moving on. Burn. I actually like the Burn matchup. I have been having a really successful win rate, but I know people hate it sometimes. In Burn matchups, it's interesting to see that it's the most aggressive deck. That's not Hammertime, but Hammertime for me is more like a combo deck, and Burn deck is really like a classical aggressive Burn deck. You have the small 1-drops, the Goblin Guides, and stuff they're doing. And they're putting pressure on, and then they finish you off with burn spells. So pretty straightforward. Notice here that I put out all the 1-drops, and that's because for me this is a classical way of adjusting, looking into. So this is a fast matchup. Okay, really fast. So really fast. They are doing something where they burn us out, so we don't like the Dismembers. Get that out there, because you can't take 4 points of damage. Even though killing off the creatures will be amazing, you can't burn yourself for 4, so that's why the Dismember is not good here. The Mist Callers is a 1/1, and Tideshipper is always a 1/1 here in this matchup, so I don't like it either. The problem for me with Tideshipper is that it's too slow to put it down for a 2/2. And they actually have a lot of creatures that are deceptively big, so you can really never trade for a Mistcaller with any of the creatures. They have the Goblin Guide, and then the one that have prowess. Don't remember the name. The 1/2 with prowess, which is almost like a 2/3 and 3/4 as a general rule. So you can never really battle it with the creatures. You need to be able to interact with it in some other way. So I take out the Mistcallers, the Tideshippers, and the Dismembers. This gives me around, how many slots is that? You can see here the Mistcallers. We have 2 Mistcallers. We have 2 Mistcallers. Take those out. We take out the Dismembers and the Tideshippers. So the reason why I take out Tideshipper, which is like, why are we taking out Tideshipper? It's a creature. Yeah, but we're taking a Chalice of the Void, and putting Chalice of the Void for 1, which is actually what we're going to do here, means the Tideshipper, we can cast it out the camera or so, but it's still kind of awkward, and sometimes it just gets stuck in hand. It's not really that good either, because you don't really fight it that well. If you put it down for 1, it's a 1/1 always. If you put it down for 2, it's so vulnerable. They can just kill it off with a Searing Blaze and get their mana back. So I don't like Tideshipper. So this is the 9 cards. On the other side of the table, we take in Chalice of the Void, Harbinger, and Subtlety. So get in the Subtlety, the Harbingers, and Chalice of the Void. So what we have here, 3, 7, 8, 9. So that's exact swap. 9 cards for 9. Yep, 9 for 9. Why didn't I see that? It's because it's swooned in differently. Okay, so 9 for 9, that's fine. So this is actually really good to matchup. I really like it. Also, we're going to talk about, for example, Kira, and why we're not putting in Kira. Kira is great against removal spells. It shocks it off, but again, they're not going to kill our creatures. They're almost going to direct the burn spells in our face. So Kira is way too slow. Why are we keeping in Spreading Seas? What's up with that? Well, the general thing with the Burn mana base is that they have no colorless mana tips in their mana cost almost. It's always like Searing Blaze is 2 red. They have the Eidolon is 2 red. They have the Boros Charm is a white and a red. They have the Lightning Helix, white and red. So if you use the Spreading Seas, they have almost no lands. They run really low land count. If you use the Spreading Seas on a white source, on a white and red source, they are suddenly maybe 3, 4, 5 cards cannot be cast from their hand, whatever. So it's really, actually really decent to use Spreading Seas in this matchup. I like it, but Tashiva doesn't afford the same. It's too easily killed off with the Lightning Bolt. And yeah, then you're not directly to my face, but still not good enough. We keep in Force Negation and we like Counter Magic because when we're down to 5 HP, this is where we need to be able to have the Force Negation ready for the Lightning Bolt. So really important to stay putting all your Counter Magic against them. Hex Catcher is also totally amazing. Being able to counter something. Sometimes you sack 4 creatures to counter the last spell and then you win on that. But Hex Catcher has been really great for this matchup. So I like our burn matchups. Play it a bit more controlish. And then again, why we're not cutting Sverloon for this matchup? You ask me. Well, let me tell you. Sverloon is great in the defensive against their creatures because 3/4 is a good body, and sometimes they use all their cards and sitting and trying to top deck the last 2 burn spells, and the Sverloon can just run away with the game, letting you net 2 cards a turn and getting all the answers you need. Maybe you draw the Force Negation to counter the final spell. So that's the burn matchup. Okay, Scam, and also kind of similar to Reckless Midrange, so I'll group them together. Scam is such a crazy matchup. This is where they want to cheat in a Grief really early, preferably turn 1. And the Grief is going to pick off 2 cards in your hand because you're going to use a Feign Death or some card of 1 mana black spell to get it back in. That's annoying. It's really, really annoying. They take out 2 cards and they leave a 4/3 on the table, so you need to answer that. But if you can answer that, you're golden. The problem is that they pick off your answers out of your hand. So not good. So why are we taking out Force Negation? You can counter the Feign Death. Yeah, we can. We could counter the Feign Death, but the problem is that he plays the Grief and then he can stack it correctly. I think it's like that. I think that's why I want to take out the Force Negation, because he can just take off. I think he can take the Force Negation first and then use the Feign Death afterwards, right? When it's on the stack. Yeah, I think he can do it like that. So I think that's the problem. And even though if we could be countering the Feign Death, I think it's still not great. We have to pitch 2 cards, 1 card with Force Negation, and he still gets to take 1 of our cards. So we lose 3 cards on his side of things. But so let's get it out. Either vial again, and this is just a general rule for all attrition-based decks and Rakdos. Is attrition-based decks, they have removal and hand disruption, all the damn time, and they're also bringing in the Rakdos card that's can kill an artifact and shoot 2 for 2 damage and discard a card. They have a lot of that in sideboard, especially the mid-range decks, and this is just a blowout, getting an Either Vial and a Lord crushed by that. So take out the Either Vial. The problem is the Either Vial, it needs creatures to function, and if they use Thoughtseize and if they use Grief combo, they can maybe look at our hand saying, I don't want to take the Either Vial, I just take the 2 only creatures they have, and then this card is just really, really poor. We need a certain amount of cards in the hand for Either Vial to be good, so I don't like it in this matchup. Spreading Seas, yeah, we can't really manage these kind of decks. Get them out there, but we do have a lot of options in sideboard. We have the Harping of the Tides, which is kind of weird, because do we really want to bounce the Grief back? Yeah, we need all the answers we can. We get the Dismembered and we have the Harbinger. So if they resolve the Grief, actually playing a Harbinger on 2, bouncing the Grief back to hand is absolutely fine. They need to discard another black card, and they're using a lot of cards on that. So let's stay in with the Harbinger. We can also see Kira, and Kira is amazing in this matchup because they have a lot of single target removal. They have also playing Fury, and Kira is really good against Fury as well. If you resolve her, they need to really be intelligent about using their Fury, so that's really hard for them. So Kira is great in this matchup. Also, they're not playing with a lot of flying things, so Kira is almost also always unblockable. Subtlety, of course, is amazing. This is actually the best card for us in this matchup. Not only because it's good against Fury, yeah, it's good against Fury, but it's the best counter for the Grief combo. Sometimes they mulliganing for the Grief combo, so they can play that in the first round. But if you just Subtlety the Grief, sometimes they just scoop. And then definitely you can also play a Relic of Progenesis. If you play that on 1 and they want to, in your first turn, and they want to in their turn, do the Grief combo, you can exile. No, I think you need to, you can exile, in response, you can exile the graveyard when the, elementals are coming to the graveyard. Relic is absolutely fine. I want to mention hers, which I think is a bit better because it's targeted. So a specific matchup here, when you're running, I prefer hers myself. And the hers is able to pick off the specific cards you want to take. Dismembers, again, good. You can kill off a creature. And then the Mistcaller, is also interesting. It's not because it's amazing, but it says that if a non-showing creature enters the battlefield and it wasn't cast, you can do it. So if you play a Mistcaller on 1 and they do the Grief combo, you can stop the interaction. So Mistcaller is fine in this matchup if you want to play. Yeah, that's sideboarding for the Scam deck. And then final deck today we're going to talk about is the Creativity deck, and we don't have much from sideboarding here, and that's not because we don't typically do a lot in this matchup. That's more because I really think that Trefolix has really been annoyed with Creativity. His deck is really built against Creativity, but it's also a big matchup. So take out 2 Adepts and put in 2 Kiras. So which cards are good in the event? We want to first of all say that the reason why we take out the Adept is because of Rensex. Again, killing it off is just so bad. But why are we keeping Dismembers? Let's look at the cards we have available for us. So, Creativity. The Dismembers are good. They're good because you can. What they want to do is that they want to summon a dwarf token, or they want to, have one of the 2/2s coming from Fable of a Mirrorbreaker, and they want to, sack that from Creativity. So they target the Creativity, and when they target the Creativity on that creature, you can kill it, and then nothing happens. So they don't get the Archon in play. So Dismember's good. Dismember's good. What else here? Why are we keeping in? We're keeping in the Sprenicies. We're keeping in Tideshippers. Creativity costs 3 red and X, and it's a multicolored deck, so it's actually really relevant to keep them off the mana base. Also, you need 3 mountains to be able to create the dwarf token. So keeping them down on mountains is just important. It's not even about mana denying them. It's just about keeping them down on red mana so they don't get dwarf tokens and they don't get to cast the Creativity. I specifically love Sprenicies because it's not a fast matchup. It's a slow matchup. And Force of Negation is of course amazing. Hexcatch is amazing. We can have some tools in this matchup. And Kira, again, they have a lot of removal, so that's fine to get in there. I want to give an honorable mention to Orvar Allform, which some people are running in the sideboard. It's a really expensive card, and it's only for this matchup. So I think it's too cute. With this list, Trefolix is running here. I think we don't really need it that much. But in general, I think it's a pretty interesting take. So that was actually my sideboard guide episode 1, and I'm really glad I finally got to do this. And I've been, of course, a bit gone. Last couple of weeks we've been really busy with the family and with vacation, and also some sickness. Nothing bad, but we've been busy. But I'm glad to be back, and I'll be doing a lot more content. I'll be doing more streams, and I'll be doing more sideboard. The second version of the sideboard guide. So this was amazing, and of course, if you haven't already, follow me on either Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube. And thanks for watching, guys. Have a great one.